Hi, I'm Tony Russo, and this is Funeral Service Insider from Kates-Boylston. Each episode features conversations about emerging trends and news that affect the death care industry. We talk to people who understand the delicate balance of change in a profession and vocation steeped in tradition. This week, I have a great conversation with Tim McLoone and Dr. Sara Murphy, both of whom have been featured before, both in American Funeral Director and in Funeral Service Insider. Dr. Murphy, Sara, is well known as a speaker. She's been speaking at the NFDA conference since 2019, I believe. She's a thanatologist and suicidologist with a specialty in the way that funeral service can best respond to families who are struggling with the after effects of suicide. And Tim McLoone, I think, is pretty well known for being an advocate for the LGBTQ plus community, and being an out funeral director and just a very present voice. Anyway, neither one of these people really consented to be on the podcast. I did a story that will be out on Thursday, October 10th in Funeral Service Insider, and I rarely do double interviews like with two people on the phone at the same time. So to do this one with Tim and Sara, I actually used the podcast recorder that I use when I make this show every week, and I got a good story, and I think you'll get a kick out of it if you're a subscriber. But the audio came out so well that I reached back out to them and I said, hey, I would like to turn this into a podcast as well. This is something worth knowing about. I would hate for anyone to go to NFDA and then find out on the way home that they had missed out on the Deathcare Proud event. If you're not familiar, the Deathcare Proud event is a get-together for members of the LGBTQIA communities. Allies are always welcome and appreciated. And it's an event that started by accident and, as you'll hear, grew from there. I also want to remind you, on the off chance that you skip my pre-recorded commercial in 15 or so minutes, that we have an event coming up in November. It is Advances in Funeral Innovations on November 12th and 13th in Houston, Texas. You can get $50 off the registration fee by punching in the discount code FSI Podcast at checkout. That is FSI PODCAST, all one word, all capital letters. Do it at checkout for $50 off your registration fee. As always, please subscribe wherever you're listening. If you would like to know any more about what we talk about in the show, click on the show notes. Finally, as always, please hang around for the postmortem after the credits. We will get to our conversation with Tim and Sara after this message from our sponsors at Homesteaders Life Company. Homesteaders Life Company invites you to visit their booth at the National Funeral Directors Association International Convention and Expo in New Orleans, October 20th through the 23rd. You're in for a sweet treat at their booth, where they will be serving up ice cream on Monday, October 21st and Tuesday, October 22nd. Cool down from the New Orleans heat and stick around to talk about how homesteaders can personalize your pre-need program. And they're sprinkling in some exciting swag that you won't want to miss. With Homesteaders, reaching your business goals is as satisfying as enjoying a sundae with all the toppings. Whether you're looking to expand your firm, connect with more families, or enhance your aftercare program, think of Homesteaders as the cherry on top that makes your success even sweeter. With more than a century of service, Homesteaders believes in delivering more than just financial security. As the only mutual life insurance company focused solely in the funeral space, they offer personalized solutions designed to meet the unique needs of your business. Because what matters to you matters to them. Don't miss your chance to connect with the Homesteaders Life team, discover their latest offerings, and enjoy a sweet treat. Stop by booth 1713, located just to the left of the main entrance of the first floor expo hall. How did you guys meet? How did you guys get together? How long? Because I've spoken with you both separately, but never together.
Well, it's funny you asked the question because we open up our talks by describing the story of how we met. So, and Sarah always says she likes how I tell it, so I will share that.
Okay.
So in 2019, we were both at the NFDA convention in Chicago. Sarah was doing what I believe, Sarah, was your first workshop for them.
Yep.
For NFDA, and I was there actually as a foundation scholarship recipient, and we were I was getting on the elevator at the Embassy Suites in Chicago, and out of the corner of my eye, I see somebody kind of trying to catch the elevator, so I quick held the door, and on Sarah came, and she took one look at my badge and said, well, I guess if something had gone really terribly wrong there, I would have been in the elevator with the right person. And of course, we had a laugh, and then the elevator goes up to the first floor lobby area, so it was from the floor up to the first floor, and we both got off the elevator and went right over and got in line for the free hotel happy hour, and which we joke, further cemented our instant friendship. But we stood in line and just kind of started chit chatting, like you do when you meet people at conferences, and ended up getting our drinks. We sat down, we talked further. And that's where I kind of shared with Sarah. We have a mutual friend who is in the education department at NFDA. And I started talking to Sarah about my feelings about, the LGBTQ plus community and funeral service and all that. And, we both kind of looked at each other and were like, well, there's something here, and I had already planned on approaching this mutual friend of ours anyway during that convention about, the lack of kind of seeing anything relating to the community in really any publications or anything like that. And it turned out that, I guess they say the rest is history, that Sarah and I ended up starting this work really from that very chance encounter.
Yeah.
That is super cool. And now the Deathcare Proud event is this a culmination of something, or is this just like a standalone event that you do every year? And this is newish. You have a sponsor this year, which is new.
Yeah, I can take that. So after Tim and I met in 2019 in Chicago, we were honored to be giving the following year the first ever workshops for death care professionals on supporting the LGBTQ plus community, which we did at the 2020 virtual NFDA convention. And then they brought us back for the 2021 convention in Nashville. And what has now become the Death Care Proud event started very organically in 2021. We gave that workshop. I think it was 7:30 in the morning. We had a great turnout. And a lot of the people who came out for that session were folks who were in the community and also in death care, but weren't necessarily out, or who had never really been in a space to meet other people talking about issues of queer identity in working in funeral service. So at the time, Tim and I thought, well, let's just keep the conversation going. And I remember us mentioning, oh, we'll be at this hotel bar tonight at 8:00 if anyone wants to stop by and keep the conversation going, raise a glass, what have you. And I think about 25 or 30 people showed up. And then we realized there really is a need for not only support for queer folks in funeral service, because it is such a prevalent profession for folks who are identify as LGBTQ plus, but also a means for them to be able to come together to in fellowship and camaraderie, but also in support for one another in what is often a very closed off profession that has a lot of inherent discrimination. So the following year, we took it to Baltimore. And the year after, well, last year, of course, we were in Las Vegas, at which point we really did ramp up. We brought on sponsors, Terry Bear Urns and Memorials and Return Home, who were so excited to support what we were doing. And we had a turnout of well over 100 people. It was a fantastic night. And now that we have ramped up, we are just keeping on. And this year, we're also thrilled to have those same sponsors, as well as Envision has come on board to support our giveaways for the night. And yeah, it's really become something of a movement, but it came out of the education we were doing and just a lot of passion and commitment for this community and funeral service too.
Yeah, and if I could add to that real quick, Tony, too,
Please.
and that's perfectly said, of course, Sarah. But one thing I just wanted to note was that, something consistent that Sarah and I hear when we've done these talks, which we haven't done as many of recently, but in when we were really out there much more often, and at these meetups, is that the meetup really does also give an opportunity for people to feel seen. And what we realized was missing via the direct feedback from people was just that, I never felt like there was a place for me in this business. I never felt seen. I go to conventions and I never see any groups. There's an under 40 party. There's a gatherings, it seems like, for everybody, but not us. And so that's been really profound too, just to know that doing this, allows for people to have that, like Sarah mentioned, that safe space for camaraderie, for fellowship, especially at, the world's largest international convention and expo and funeral service. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think why Tim and I make such a great team in part is because we're coming from different spaces in death care. Tim is an out and proud funeral home owner, but has talked in our workshops and in media about not always feeling like he had a place in this profession when he started due to discrimination and stigma in the workplace. I come from academia and from thanatology with expertise in grief and bereavement, but also a long history of activism for disenfranchised groups and for the queer community. So I think when we saw that there was an absence of support for the people in this profession who make up this beautiful, diverse rainbow community, and that people in positions of power and organizations weren't really doing anything to bring them together or to celebrate them or to validate them, the social justice warriors are going to say, well, then we're going to do it ourselves.
Several things. The first question I'm going to ask you, you don't have to restate everything you said, but I do want to add that one of the recurring topics is, we were talking about being seen, is it's important even for people who don't go to know that if they wanted to, there was a place for them. It's not, if for instance, they're not out yet,
Yes,
or something, to know that there's this kind of safe place.
absolutely. There are people who come to our events who are not out, but who know that they are safe in that space, whether they want to be out to us or not. There are people who have come to our events who have used it as an opportunity to come out. And, there's a lot of allies and advocates who come to and surround this community with a lot of love. But we met people at our event last year at the meetup who only came to convention because we were having this event and they felt like there was finally a place for them while they were there.
yeah, and to your point, Tony, just the fact that the event exists, whether folks can make it or not, it makes a difference too, and is also very important. It's the visibility. So, and I think we're so grateful, obviously, for all of our sponsors too, because that helps increase the visibility of the event and to let the community know that whether they can make it or not, they're seeing that it's happening, and that is just as important, as whether they can fit it into their busy kind of conference agenda, which we know is tough for people. But I think just the increasing publicity, for want of a better word, that we've seen recently, and especially last year, and now the fact that we're anticipating it to be bigger and better than ever this year, just the fact that it's out there is important too. Like, just the fact that it's happening. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can't make NFDA or can't make it this year or maybe next year or whatever, but just knowing that it's happening is huge too, I think.
Yeah. And I would add, because you mentioned our sponsors and we are so grateful to them, and we really intentionally only wanted to partner with companies that had a social mission for equality to begin with and who were already doing work to support the LGBTQ plus community, versus, companies that maybe would have just used it to check a box on DEI. We didn't want any of that. But it's also really important for queer folks working in this space, both the family facing side of funeral service and the industry side, to also know that there are companies who are very supportive of this community. And that's really important, I think, for everyone from mortuary students to seasoned professionals to see, is that this was very much a grassroots movement that Tim and I were honored to start, but that there are, really important corporate folks who are equally passionate about this community and are not afraid to say so.
And actually, I do want to take another look at the start, because I know you tell the story and sometimes it becomes the story that you tell. There was a point where you went from, that was fun, maybe we should do it again, to, oh, let's do it again, to now we have to do it. So can you talk to me about like that transition, that idea of stumbling upon something and then, the realization that you have not a responsibility, but I'm going to say responsibility to at least follow it through a little bit?
Oh, yeah, that's an excellent question. Sarah, do you want me to start? You're exactly right. I think that we started this, like Sarah said earlier, with this kind of like, let's all meet at a hotel bar and just kind of see what happens. And I think Sarah and I were like, listen, if we get 10 people, that'll be great. Like just anything to kind of continue that conversation for people who found the workshop important and meaningful to them. Now, the second year, we were in Baltimore, and I didn't work directly with Sarah to plan that one because I just bought the funeral home and it was a little bit hectic for me. But that slow and steady growth was definitely there, because that year we had about 60 people, I think, right, Sarah? 60, 70 people. It was another kind of hotel lobby bar situation. But I think when we saw that, like that doubling of the number, especially in Baltimore, because the attendance at that convention was a little bit less than some of the other kind of big cities that attract some more people, we were impressed by that. And I feel like, and Sarah, I want you to weigh in too, because I don't know that we've ever really talked about this, but I think at that point, for me, I was like, not only do we need to do this, not only do we need to continue it, but we need to really make it bigger and better than ever. And I think that's where Sarah and I really were like, we need to get sponsors. We need to make this bigger. And we kind of went out on a limb with that, because you just never know if you're going to keep that trajectory going or not. But last year's event was proof that the need was still there, and that that upward growth was just going to continue. But I feel like for me, that's when I thought, yeah, this isn't just going to be like the hotel bar meetup anymore. Like this really has traction, to be something so much bigger.
Yeah, I would concur with that. I think I remember the night after our first in-person workshop at NFDA, and we were so tired. It had been such a long day, and we were up very late with the folks who turned out at that little hotel bar in Nashville. And both of us were tearing up at the end of the night and hugging each other and just feeling so moved by what the day had brought, and the real-time outpouring from people really opening up with their stories and their backgrounds and, the good and the bad of what they've gone through in this profession. And then seeing it just through word of mouth double like that in Baltimore, I think there was definitely a shared sense of let's keep going. And again, like, thank goodness. It was the easiest fundraising I've ever done in my life was securing those sponsors. And my first career was in national politics, which is a lot of fundraising. But within maybe 10 minutes, these two companies we had so much respect for were like, oh, we are in. Like, what can we do? Anything we can do. And that was really gratifying, because it wasn't just the two of us now trying to prove the need for something like this. And just 4 years out now, the buzz is certainly buzzing in terms of this event.
Hi, I'm Tony Russo from Funeral Service Insider, and I wanted to take a second and give you the heads up on our upcoming Advances in Funeral Innovations Conference held in Houston, Texas, November 12th and 13th. We have a bunch of great speakers, including Tyler Anderson from Pacoa, John LaFront of Alevia, Welton Hong from Ring Ring Marketing, Barclay Cadet from Carriage, Shannon Hill from Legacy Coach Sales, Terry School from Davis Whitehall, Melissa Posey-Luce and Ken Peterson from NGL, Kyle Fogarty from Memory Share, Deathcare, Austin Anderson from Implant Recycling, Greg Norris of Homesteader's Life, and Darren Crouch of Passages. They represent pretty much every sector in death care, and they represent companies on the cutting edge of those sectors, and they represent people who know what's coming, who know what you'll need to know in 18 months, and they want to tell you now. The conferences are always the best part of my job because everybody gets to hang out in between. We get a lot of really cool stories from the participants, both at the event and in the breakouts. There's still plenty of time to register. You can just click the link below or just go to Kates-Boylston.com and we will have a link to the events section and click on Advances in Funeral Innovations. Once more, November 12th and 13th, Houston, Texas, something you don't want to miss. And thanks for listening. So I don't want to call anybody out, but I just want to know if I can write the sentence. Was it the first two people you spoke with, or were these the first two that said yes?
Oh, we knew that we wanted to talk to Return Home, and we knew that we wanted to talk to Terry Bear Urns and Memorials. We know both of the CEOs and their commitment to the community. We know they hire and promote and support LGBTQ plus employees. And within literally minutes of reaching out to both of them, they were the first calls. They were all in.
And so how about your new sponsor this year?
We're super excited to also have Envision on board. And, Tim, that really came through with your relationship with Aaron Krieger also, right?
Yeah. So Envision Strategic Partners is coming in, as Sarah said, as our swag sponsor, if you will. We have a couple surprise giveaways. And yeah, so I had developed a relationship with Aaron Krieger from Envision. Well, number one, we actually, our funeral home had started with them for pre-need at the time. And then also we had gotten to know each other just via the network, as, Sarah knows, and know, the circuit, if you will, of funeral service. And one of her employees, he's a recruiter for Envision, is Cody Spradlin, and he had come to the event in Baltimore. So I had gotten to chat with him a little bit. He is part of the LGBTQ plus community and was really impressed by, the fact that event was happening and things like that. So I knew through getting to know Erin that she was very, very supportive of the community, that Envision is all about diversity and keeping their team diverse in many, many different ways, but also certainly employing members of our community. And so it just kind of naturally happened. And so they were able to come in as the swag sponsor, which is huge because we gave away t-shirts last year and we wanted to continue to brand this Deathcare Proud meetup and kind of enhance the Deathcare Proud brand, if you will. So we really wanted to make sure we could have items there. But, when we go through budgets and we're talking about how much we're spending on the event and stuff, it was something where we did need a sponsor to step up, and Envision was happy to do that. And we really couldn't be happier. I think, Sarah, they turned around their logo in rainbow form in minutes.
Yes.
Once we were ready to start promoting this. So their enthusiasm about it is phenomenal. And we're just happy to have them in the mix as well.
That is absolutely fantastic. So what's next? Are you going to ICCFA, CANA, or are we going to stay with just the NFDA? Is this, what do you think? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I probably can't pull Tim away from his business all the time. And I'm on the circuit. I'm on the circuit quite a bit as a speaker. Well, given that this is not an NFDA event, right, but an annual event for Deathcare Proud, because it is a once-a-year event, we've found the best place to time it is with the NFDA convention, because it does give us the numbers for people to be able to turn out. And I certainly wouldn't rule out down the road having smaller or more pop-up events as time and budget allow. But for now, we're really looking toward an amazing event. I'm sure it will be an amazing event in New Orleans. And then next year, we'll start planning as soon as it's over for Chicago.
Yeah, it definitely is one of those types of things where I think we started planning immediately. And we already have some ideas for next year, I think, too. But in addition to that, Sarah and I consistently have this conversation when we catch up about kind of that what's next sort of thing. It's again kind of like what you said earlier, Tony, that when did you realize that you kind of had to do it? Well, now we're kind of like, what's next? Like where does this go? We're not sure where that is, but I think this year is going to be a really good opportunity, again anticipating it to be the biggest group yet, we hope, and we believe it will be, to really have some of those conversations with folks who've come consistently, with folks that have been to our talks, with people who still want to see more happening, in this space, to kind of see where we can take Deathcare proud, maybe to a whole other level besides just meetups. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think there's much more in store that we'll be able to talk about in the future, but maybe not exactly now as it's being discussed and worked out. But I think we'll continue by all means the events and the support and the fellowship, and maybe start talking about how to bridge that into more action and change for the community as well.
Fantastic. And that's all I have for you, unless you have something for me. Is there something I should have asked and didn't, or something you didn't get the opportunity to say?
Not that I can think of. I think we've pretty much said it, Sarah, but I think just we're very, not pardon the pun, but just very proud of where this has come from. And while Sarah and I think, agree that we're humble in the way that we're not looking for any type of credit, we also are humbled deeply by what we've seen happen from this. And we do feel very proud that, in many ways, I guess people do view us as sort of the people that started this movement within Deathcare. And you're really grown quite a bit. Like, you see it so much more being talked about than ever before. So we're just happy to be able to do it. And we are happy that it, as Sarah said earlier, that it really has been a truly grassroots type of thing, that we were able to start from something so small and just an idea over drinks in Chicago turned into something that we could have never dreamt of. So
I agree.
I'm excited that it happened. And I do want to say, if I can compliment you both, that there is also kind of an element of coming out to start this. It's like, okay, we're going to kind of put ourselves out there and say, we think that people want this. And as Tim was saying before, it's a huge chance, because people might say, nah, it was a one-off, and then you're standing there all by yourself at the bar. So, it takes a little courage to wait for those first couple people to show up and confirm that you're doing something that people want.
Well, and also going back, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Sarah, but just that also has been important, I think, for both Sarah and I in different ways. Sarah's developed a speaking career within Deathcare that is very noteworthy, and she does a phenomenal job. Coming out and being outspokenly supportive of the community could be risky, on her end.
Yeah.
For me, most people in my circle were familiar with who I am, and I'm very much out and open about my sexual orientation. But it was a little risky for me too, thinking I'm really putting myself out there on a national stage, being very open,
now you're the face,
very outspoken about negative experiences I had too. And Sarah can certainly attest that we've dealt with pushback a little bit, but I think it was well worth that risk. Sarah, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
No, you're fine. 100%. I think, it's sad that when we started doing this in 2020, it was because of a need that should have been filled decades earlier within the profession. But we're glad to have been the ones to step up and do it. And if that took some element of risk, it's come with incredible reward, not just for the community, but for us. I was out at the Cana convention in Chicago 2 weeks ago, and walking the expo floor, I felt like every other booth I stopped at, people were saying, oh my gosh, we're so excited about the meetup in New Orleans. Or a couple of people who were literally saying, okay, 36 days until the meetup in New Orleans. And I was texting Tim saying, like, buckle up. We're going to have a line down the block, I think. But it is so gratifying to have been able to be part also of this community, not only becoming more visible and coming together, but for folks in Deathcare who kind of ignored the very diverse makeup of people in this space who are all there in plain sight for so many years, that those people are now becoming more attuned to and recognizing of the need to appreciate and value and validate LGBTQ members in Deathcare too. And that's wonderful to see.
Well, thank you so much.
Very cool.
Really
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Enjoy the rest
Thanks
of
for
your
doing this.
evening. Homesteaders Life Company invites you to visit their booth at the National Funeral Directors Association International Convention and Expo in New Orleans, October 20th through the 23rd. You're in for a sweet treat at their booth, where they will be serving up ice cream on Monday, October 21st and Tuesday, October 22nd. Cool down from the New Orleans heat and stick around to talk about how homesteaders can personalize your pre-need program. And they're sprinkling in some exciting swag that you won't want to miss. With homesteaders, reaching your business goals is as satisfying as enjoying a sundae with all the toppings. Whether you're looking to expand your firm, connect with more families, or enhance your aftercare program, think of homesteaders as the cherry on top that makes your success even sweeter. With more than a century of service, Homesteaders believes in delivering more than just financial security. As the only mutual life insurance company focused solely in the funeral space, they offer personalized solutions designed to meet the unique needs of your business, because what matters to you matters to them. Don't miss your chance to connect with the Homesteaders Life team, discover their latest offerings, and enjoy a sweet treat. Stop by booth 1713, located just to the left of the main entrance of the first floor expo hall. Funeral Service Insider is a Kates-Boylston production. It was written and edited by me, Tony Russo. I say it every week, and this is a week, so I'll continue to say it. Please subscribe wherever you are listening. Follow if you're on Apple. I believe Spotify is also follow at this point. There's a button that says keep listening to the show, and click that button, and when the show comes out, you will be notified. And we've been doing bonus episodes during the week. And of course, our Friday, In Case You Missed It podcast has been getting more and more popular, which it's a brief take. It's a 10-minute take on the week's news and funeral service. I think we're the only ones who are doing that, and it's something we're pretty proud of. So check that out either here on this feed or, again, on our Kates-Boylston YouTube feed. And if you would like to come join us at Advances in Funeral Innovations in Houston, Texas on November 12th and 13th, we can offer you a $50 off coupon if you enter the code FSI Podcast. That is FSI PODCAST, all caps, all one word, for $50 off of the registration fee. If you'd like to get a sneak preview, again, just listen to the bonus episodes that we've been doing on Wednesdays, and it'll give you a little insight into some of the talks and the scopes thereof that we'll have in Houston. Of course, you can go to Kates-Boylston and click on the events tab, and that will bring you to the Advances in Funeral Innovations page, where you can see all of the speakers, all of the bios. The agenda is up. You can know exactly what's going on, and I think if you have the time and the wherewithal, it's absolutely going to be worth your trip. And now for the postmortem. Several weeks ago, I reported on kind of a news of the weird story about a woman who had attempted to steal a casket and ended up leaving with the body as well. Upon discovering that she had the body, they say that she dumped the body and continued on with the casket. Actually, that was just what originally was reported. As it turned out, she also left the casket and the church truck outside in the parking lot as well. I'll have a link to the updated story in the show notes. The only reason that I'm bringing it up now is because when I brought it up before, I was baffled by the fact that they didn't report on what happened to the casket that the woman had gone in to steal. I guess that now we know. So that will do it this week for Funeral Service Insider, the podcast.